What's going on, guys? It's your boy. I'm here at Highside with everyone. Today I'm going to explain how I managed to get the factory chain and sprockets on my R7 to last me 50,000 kilometers. I've just changed them. This is new. However, this chain is due for a clean and attention. So follow along. I'll explain exactly how I get chains looking pristine and make sure that they last as long as they possibly can. This is for most bikes, not just R7s, but obviously this is an R7 I'm working on. So follow along, I'll show you exactly what to do and exactly what you need. Okay, so like I said before, this chain's actually brand new. Now, I've only done about 300 or so kilometers on it. However, when a chain's brand new, you do need to make sure that you tighten it probably within the first 500 Ks. There's a fair bit of flex on there, and you can sort of see that it's drooping a little bit. And then on the top here as well, you can see that there's a little bit of flex. Now, the R7 and MT07 have a chain specification in their manual, which I'll look up in just a second. I'm pretty sure it's 55 mil, but I'll just double check for you. Then we'll adjust that to make sure it's the right tension. All right, so I've just measured it. Mine chain at the moment is at about 60 mil, so I need to tighten that up. What we need to tighten it is we need a socket. Most 650cc bikes run a 27 mil rear axle nut. This is usually enough to take it off. I would highly recommend using a torque wrench when you're retightening it to make sure that you're getting exactly the right specification. But unfortunately I don't have access to one at the moment, so I'm just going to gauge it by feel. Usually I'm pretty good, but we'll see. Hopefully the wheel doesn't fall off. So you need that, and then you need two spanners as well. I've got a 12 and a 13. I have a 13 because I lost this nut here and I had to replace it, and the only nut I could find at the time was a 13. So normally I'm pretty sure you just get away with two 12s. So the first step is to loosen this. So we're going to make sure this is set up in loosening, make sure that the socket is on the nut firmly, and then we can go lefty loosey righty tighty. There's something like this that can sit there with a nice firm grip on the nut. You can actually just stand up and then use your foot nice and firm on there. Give it a push with your foot, or stand on it if you're lightweight, and there you go. Off she comes. Now you don't have to actually take this off completely, just loosen it. Okay, now that the axle nut is loose, the wheel has the ability to move inside the swing arm. We can use these bolts here to tension that and pull that away, which will make the chain tighter. Basically, the way that's done is this nut on the front here is a lock nut. This is actually your tensioning nut on the front there. All this does is tighten up against that nut and stops it from moving by itself. So first we need to loosen this one, which we can use two spanners, one on the tensioning nut and then one on the lock nut. Just loosen that. Should be pretty easy usually. Give that a little bit of room to breathe. And now we've got this one ready to go. Before we touch anything here, we need to do the same thing to the other side. All right, so I've got both of the tensioners loose and ready to go, ready for their adjustment. Now, if you don't have access to a ruler, which is kind of weird because they're like $1, but let's say you can't find a ruler, that's fine. The bike does have these lines here you can use as a rough guide or measurement to make sure that both of them are even. Because when you adjust these tensioners, you're actually pulling them back one side of the wheel at a time. And so you got to make sure that both sides are getting pulled back the same amount, because this will ensure that the wheel stays straight. Otherwise, the wheel will actually be twisted inside the swing arm and it'll really badly affect your handling. It'll affect your tire wear. If you try and do a wheelie, the bike will want to tip over to the side. It's terrible. So you got to make sure that both of these sides are the same when you're tensioning it. So usually a way to do it is to go half a turn on the nut, tightening, which will pull this side out, and then go half a turn on that side. Check your tension. Okay, not enough? Another half a turn on this side, another half a turn on that side. Check your tension again. Now, I'm going to do that here. I can't really film it because I don't have three hands, but the easiest thing to do is you can use those, but a ruler is much more accurate. This sort of adjustment system is really easy. A lot of bikes are very different, but this one's quite rudimentary. It's quite easy to understand. Basically, measure that. If you can see that this thread here is sticking out from the back of the swing arm, the same distance on both sides, you know that the wheel is straight. So half a turn, check tension, half a turn, check tension, half a turn, check tension. Okay, I've got the right tension now. Then double check and make sure that they're both the same length out of the back of the swing arm there. Other bikes do have other systems. You can find other tutorials for those very easily, but that's very important to make sure that the bike's riding in a straight line and you're getting all the best performance out of it. Okay, so I've just got the right tension on the chain now. It's looking pretty good. What I'm now going to do is I'm just going to rotate the chain around to the other side, and I'm going to check the tension again, and just make sure that as I go around and I check the tension, it isn't changing very much at all, and it's staying the same. Because what can happen on a chain is, especially if you're popping wheelies and you're doing stuff like that, what can happen is you put more tension on some of the links than other links, because the drive side of the chain is actually the top. We measure tension on the bottom, but this is actually the part of the chain up here that's pulling the bike forward. Front sprocket spins forward in that direction, creates tension on the chain, that spins the back sprocket, which spins the wheel. When you do clutch ups, power wheelies, accelerate really hard and all that sort of stuff, this part of the chain here endures more stress than this part of the chain. So what can happen over time is that this part of the chain, as it rotates around, eventually ends up accumulating all that stress and becoming stretched compared to the other side of the chain. Now, it's very difficult to predict which side of the chain that's going to be, but often you'll find when the chain's nearing its end of life, or prematurely if you're doing wheelies and burnouts and stuff, you can have a tight spot where you'll rotate it around, and you know, this part of the chain here will be the right tension, but then you'll rotate it around and then this part will like move like this. It'll be really tight. And that's because some links on the chain, which have been here when you're dumping the clutch and doing monos and stuff, those links are stretched out and the metal's been stressed more than the other parts of the chain. So that's part of the reason why when you're learning wheelies and all that sort of stuff, smooth clutch control and understanding of the mechanical process, doing the monos and all that sort of stuff is very important, because otherwise you can do a lot of damage to the bike. You can wear out the clutch, stretch the chain, all sorts of stuff. So just make sure that when you are tightening your chain and cleaning and lubing it, you just run it around and just make sure you haven't got any crazy tight spots, because then that means it's going to be time to change the chain. So we've checked the chain tension and it's all good. Now, how do we make sure that when we tighten that axle nut, it stays tight or it stays in the same position that it was? So what we do is, a little trick is to grab a rag, bunch it up, put it in the sprocket like this, just bunch it up in there. And then when you rotate the wheel, you'll pull that tight and it won't go anywhere. Right, you can't rotate it forward. What you've done is you've actually slid the wheel all the way forward. So that means you know that on both sides there, it's up against the chain adjuster. So what I normally do is I get it to that point there and then I sort of hold it there. Then I'll grab my ratchet and I'll make sure that I tighten that up. So make sure the ratchet's switched over to tighten, righty-tighty, spin it to the right. Now, like I said before, this is much more preferable to do with a torque wrench. Tighten it up with one of these, that's fine, but then use a torque wrench to make sure that you're setting the tension in the nut correctly. I've done this a lot without torque wrenches, so I sort of know how tight it needs to be just by feel. I don't recommend doing that if you're new. I recommend using a torque wrench. Borrow one if you can't get your hands on one, that's fine. Then you can spin the wheel backwards, get the cloth out, you're all good to go. Your chain is at the correct tension. Now, the adjuster nuts, we haven't tightened them. The reason we don't tighten them is because tightening this nut here can sometimes move that, and you don't want that nut moving while the axle's loose. When the axle's tight, you can sort of get away with a little bit of free play there and it won't affect your chain alignment. So normally tighten that up with your fingers and then use one spanner to hold this nut still and then the other spanner to tighten that. So I'm going to do that now, and then we'll get into cleaning and lubing the chain. All right, so chain's tightened, it's ready to go, all good. No stress there. Now, this is dirty because it's about 300 Ks on that stock chain goo stuff that comes out. So what I've got here ready to go is some brake cleaner. You can use brake cleaner, you can use degreaser, you can use kerosene, you can use diesel. I've found the most success with brake cleaner just because it is a propellant. It does actually push all the shit out of the chain, which I've found to be super helpful. Just some Motul chain lube. Scotty Mac's put his sticker on it. It's not Scotty Mac branded chain lube, it is just Motul chain lube. A chain brush. You can get these as part of your chain care kits. You can buy them from Highside, shout out, because obviously he's letting me use his shop. A rag, important to have a rag. I'll show you why later. Now, because I've had forethought, I've actually put cardboard down before I've done this because this process can get quite messy. But bear with me, let's get it done. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do is clean off all the gunk that's stuck to the chain. Now what I find, one of the best ways to do this is to literally just get the brake cleaner or whatever you're using and just hold it here and spray the shit out of the chain as it comes through, and just try and get as much of that gunk off as possible. So I'm going to do that now. You want to try and get it sort of on the rollers in the middle, and make sure you're actually cleaning where the O-rings are and everything. That's important because that's where the gunk can actually build up. So now that I've sprayed the shit out of the chain, I'm going to use the chain brush on both sides. So when you're actually using the chain brush, you can just put it on straight and then do this as you're spinning the wheel. But it actually works better if you tilt it like this and do it, because then you're actually cleaning both the top and the bottom of the chain at the same time, and you'll get better sort of reach in there and make sure that you're really cleaning it. Now that I've rubbed the chain and washed it like that, I'm going to spray brake cleaner on it again, and then I'm going to use the rag just to finish the cleaning process.
And then so just out of I'm not sure what that.
Alright, so as you can see there, chain and sprocket's super clean. It's a quick, easy way to do that. Now with the lube, this is where a lot of people sort of make a mistake. They either don't use enough or they use way too much. Basically all you need to do is just hold it steady and spray it as it spins around. You only really need one spin, and then that's enough. And then I'll show you a trick to make sure that it doesn't spray all over your wheel afterwards as well. So the trick to make sure that you don't spray chain lube all over the wheel is to do two things. One, while the chain lube's fresh, just run the cloth along the chain the whole way around, and then also let it sit for a little while so that chain lube really has a chance to soak in there and bed in to the chain, and then it's less likely to flick off while the sprocket's spinning. All right, and there we go. The chain is clean, lubed, and adjusted. Beautiful. Things to note is to just double check and make sure that everything is tight so nothing's going to fall off on you. Very important. The other thing too is to just have a check over the wheel here and just make sure that you haven't got chain lube or oil or grease or anything on your tire, because obviously that's going to make it slippery. If you do get some on your tire, just get a clean rag with some brake cleaner, wipe it off, and you should be good to go. So there you go. That's how I made the stock chain and sprockets last 50,000 Ks on this R7. So keep up your chain maintenance, make sure you're part of the Clean Chain Club, and I'll see you guys in the next video.